so many years. Since you were asking about quotes, who knows who said that there were theaters in Tacoma before they finished pulling the stumps out of Pacific Avenue? Anybody know who said that? It was historian Murray Morgan, and he's right. The first theater was in 1879, and it was called the Tacoma Opera House and Pool Hall. I think we still would like that. I think that's a pretty good combo if you can get it. And as we are marching along, this year is the 100th anniversary of the Pantages Theater. It's also the 100th anniversary of the Port of Tacoma, and the 100th anniversary of Tacoma Little Theater, and the 100th anniversary of the Kiwanis here in Tacoma, and a number of other years. In fact, the Tacoma Historical Society is organizing a theme for the year that 100 years since the year of destiny, when 1918 was that year. And so they'll be celebrating with us to remember 100 years of significance. We are in the midst, so in the middle of your table, or in the midst of your table, are some propaganda that I brought. It is an insert that we do every year in the News Tribune. Please take a look at that. It announces all of our programs coming up for the remainder of this season, which will end in May this year, because we'll be closing the Pantages for renovation. I've been pushing our architects and engineers for months now to look at the most efficient way for us to make the changes that we want to do. And initially we were looking at an 18-month closure, and now we've got it down to 6.5 months. So what a relief. And this is a $20 million project, and we will be in the first phase, renewing all of the interiors of the theater. We just brought in a forensic design team from the East Coast who probed through 23 layers of paint in 100 years for the Pantages. And what they discovered through their optic system is that what we see today in the theater is nothing like what was there in 1918. And so we will be going back to the historic look, which is a much richer, complex brocade throughout the interior. You will not recognize the place. So it's going to be exciting. We will have, by the end of this month, we will have about an 8-foot wide test strip in the theater from the upper balcony to the ceiling to give people a sense of where we're going. And so please come over the next few months and take a look and enjoy a show while you're there. We will also be providing new seats. May I hear an amen? And so those new seats are going to be super comfortable, and we'll be slightly boosting the seat count in the theater. You'll think, how do you do that? Well, when the theater was originally built in 1918, there was a center aisle up the middle. And then in 1983, when they did the initial renovation, they got rid of that center aisle. That was sort of the theme in the 1980s, to do what was called continental seating, which were rows all the way across the theater, which is great if you're sitting in the middle of the theater and you suddenly have to go to the restroom. So we're putting that up aisle back in, and that's going to make people's lives much more comfortable. And that will take up some seats there, but there is an extraordinary, anybody over 6'2", hi Rick, they will be taking about 2 inches of leg space between those rows, each row. Right now there's about 19 inches of leg space, so it's an extraordinary amount of space there. So as we do that, we'll snug up the rows just a tiny bit, put a center aisle in, and we'll gain about 50 seats through that process. A number of other things are going on. We're expanding the backstage area to reach out into the street, which will allow us to take bigger shows and all of that. Then one of the things I'm most excited about is in the Theater on the Square lobby, which will also be getting some renewal effort, new seats there and new surface work there. We're going to be taking on a new program effort in that theater, and it will be the Lair Lucian Commons. And this is in honor of Babe Lair and Don Lucian, who were incredible advocates for Tacoma, incredible civic engagement leaders, and made a difference, whether it's Don helping kick off the University of Washington, or Babe doing public art and working on the TCC Foundation for so many years. Both of them significantly engaged in the performing arts through the Broadway Center. We are taking on creating an exhibit in their honor that celebrates civic leadership, teaches kids what does civics mean, what does it mean to come together as a community and bridge divisions, which I loved hearing the work that's being done by Nate Bowling and his team, to bring people together. And so the program will teach folks what does civics mean. It'll give a place to practice that, so the space will be available for nonprofits and civic leaders to come together and dream and brainstorm about the next big thing to do in this community. And this community is, I think, remarkable because it never stops. There's always the next thing to do. And it is because of that kind of leadership, that kind of vision, the energizing work that volunteers and civic leaders do here, that Sunset Magazine just voted us the best place to live in the West. And I think arts and culture is a big piece of that. Over the last 20 years or so, we are a different community because of the arts and because of the cultural programs that are going on. We want to help teach all of that in this exhibit and celebrate and honor a number of different civic leaders over the last 150 years of Tacoma. So that will be coming in 2019, and we're excited about that. Also out of this campaign will be a special fund that will help us expand some of the work that we're doing in education and help launch a new professional theater company to replace Tacoma Actors Guild that disappeared about 2007. So that will also re-energize theater on the square and give great new performances with new literature and new ideas through the theater in that wonderful 300-seat space. So all of that will come, and including some seismic upgrades. We'll get through all of these phases by 2020. Broadway Center is the largest arts organization in town. We are the largest arts employer in town. We're delivering about a $24 million economic impact annually through everything that we're doing. We're the largest retailer in downtown through our box office, which does about $3.5 million there. We're right now about a $6.5 million agency and working hard through three areas. One is the great performances that we bring. So please take these little propaganda items that I have in the center of the table, take them home with you, find an event to come. We work really hard to make sure that what shows up on our stages reflects the citizen ownership of the buildings. We want to make sure we're serving a really broad base of community there. And that's why our programming is about as eclectic as you will find anywhere. So please come and join us. That's one leg of our three-legged stool. The other leg is education, and we are the largest arts education provider in the western United States. We're serving almost 50,000 students annually, and we do that with great intention by working with our Kennedy Center partners. That's a partnership that we have with the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And that partnership in this region includes the Tacoma, Bethel, and Puyallup school districts that we co-plan work with annually. The work is meant as a whole child initiative. It is meant to have deep impact with students, not just art for art's sake, but arts for the purpose of opening up the souls and opening up the spirit of each student and getting them and teaching them to connect with each other. So a lot of our programs are very much about, for instance, we have a anti-bullying program. We have a big civil rights teaching program that we have. Right now, our team is out in schools all around the United States, all around the state, teaching civil rights through the history of Dr. Martin Luther King. And we have other programs in that vein as well. We last year did a great program on Japanese internment. We've done programs on Latino immigration. And then we have a program on sort of the survey course of civil rights from the emancipation through gay marriage. So we are looking and trying to teach kids and get kids engaged in what does it mean to be a citizen in this country. That's our education program. And then the third leg of our stool is the stewardship of the buildings, working in partnership with the city of Tacoma, who are the owners of the buildings. And through that partnership, we help elevate, promote, and strengthen all of the performing arts, the symphony, the opera, the youth symphony, the Puget Sound Rebels, the Tacoma Concert Band, the Tacoma City Ballet, the Northwest Sinfonietta. And yeah, there you go. So I'm going to stop and answer any questions that you might have. That's sort of the Broadway Center in a nutshell, what we have going on, and I'm happy to answer any